Hey guys, RoonPicker here, and I'm actually recording this after the fact of picking this lock. The main reason for this I will get into later in the video, but we're going to be picking the Assa P600. And so, coming up here in a second, we are going to show the key working. And I really like this lock, but after having to record this video like 7 times, it was really a pain in the butt. Here we get a close-up of the bitting, and you can see that it says P600 on the key. Now this is one of my purple belt locks, and so we're going to get a close-up of the keyway. You can see it's pretty offset and paracentric, and that wording goes all the way to the back. So you have to pick off the bottom right ledge to get to those key pins. So, and I aptly named this the Pick Eater because while I was trying to pick this, I actually broke 6 of my lock picks, and I'll explain a little bit later why, talking with Paradise, why that might be. Here we're putting in the vise, and we're going to do traditional bottom of the keyway tension in clockwise direction, and we're going to start picking. Now I used my standard hook in 18 thousandths and a hook 7 in 18 thousandths. Those are the 2 primary hooks I used to pick this lock. Now, this lock I found likes to bind from the back, and it has a crazy bitting binding, I guess, because it binds pin 6, then 1, then 2, and then 5, 3, 4. So you're bouncing around all over the place, and you have to semi-set some of these pins to get other ones to bind. I found those Assa barrel spools that are in here in the counter milling really wreak a lot of havoc on my picks from picking on that bottom ledge. So after I got them to, I guess, where only the bottom of the barrel was binding in the core, so like a majority of the way up, I had enough room to pick off the top ledge. So I was actually sliding underneath the pins and lifting them up. So I didn't have to pick up and around that warding for the entire pick. Now, I had to record this video about 7 times, and I was pretty sick of picking this lock by the time this video came out. The first time I picked it, I left frame by accident, so it wasn't a valid pick. Second time, I left frame, wasn't a valid pick, and I was still learning my camera setup. That's why I've been practicing so much. The third time, I accidentally dropped the lock while gutting, and the key pins fell over the place, and so I just cut the video. Where were we at? 4th or 5th time. One of the times the battery ran out. Another time I forgot to put the memory card in. And then the time before this time, I was taking the camera. I had picked it, and I was taking the camera off the stand, and I accidentally turned it off while picking it. You can see we just got the open, thankfully. There may have been a couple expletives after opening this. Like I said, I was pretty tired of it after this point. So we're going to start gutting this. But this take was the only usable take, and of course, at least there was no audio, but at least it was usable. So I decided, you know what, I'm done picking this. I'm just going to record over it at this point. But it was acceptable for the mods because I was able to get my purple belt. So right now for this lock, I'm using the snap ring pliers to take the ring off the back of it, and then this lock, you may notice in the beginning, looks a little bit differently from a regular Assa P600. The reason for that is this lock normally comes in a full Euro cylinder, so there's 2 halves. Well, Mr. Paradise picked it both halves, and then he cut it in half, and he sent half to Mr. Snurp, and my half he was going to turn into a challenge lock actually, and I scooped it up off of him for a decent price before he changed out the internals. So everything on the inside is stock to what an Assa P600 should be. It just has the grub screws on top, so that makes it progressive pinning a little bit easier. So here we're taking out the grub screws. Going to be dropping out those barrels and the springs. And one interesting note, I don't know if you saw the key, how it has all those chisels. Talking with Roon International, a quick interesting fact is that the reason why the key looks so crazy is because it's part of an elaborate master keying system. That's about all I know regarding that, but I thought that was kind of interesting how they have that key looking. So we're almost done gutting this now. And right about after this was on one of my takes where I got the final driver pin out, and I had the core the wrong direction, and it just slipped out of the Bible, and the key pins dropped everywhere. And I was so scared that I lost the key pin. I spent like an hour looking for it. I eventually found it, thankfully, but because I did not want to buy a new lock and have to relearn it from scratch. So here it looks like we're taking the core out, and we're going to start dropping our driver pins, and then shortly after this we'll get our close-up. And I one of the other things I've been practicing really heavily is close-ups, because one of the things that the mods on the subreddit have been really harping on is the fact that they could not clearly get a picture of the pins to verify the lock, and so I invested in this new camera specifically for this lock because I didn't want to have to risk having to pick it again. Which I still ended up picking it 7 times, ironically. So, some people may be asking what is next after this. I have Schlage Everest Primus, which I just acquired, and I am going to start learning that. That'll be one of my brown belt locks. And I will have either the Gen 3 Quickset Gen 3 that I will use for my second, or the Mako M2 7-pin FSIC. So I haven't decided. I haven't fully committed to the Everest either yet, but those are the 3 potential candidates for my brown belt. So it looks like we're ready to do a close-up. So we're going to go grab the camera and carefully bring it over to the pins. So I'm still trying to get the orientation. You'll notice here in just a second I accidentally put my finger over it, but thankfully it wasn't enough where they couldn't verify that. They still said it was verifiable. So we're going to look first at these key pins. You can see the chisel tipped with the wings on them, and they got those the really cool looking Assa barrels and those springs. You can see we have high, low, high, high, and then it gets higher. And then here we're going to get close up of that counter milling in the chamber for verification. And we're going to look at the Bible. You can see that the threading is only on the top. It does not go all the way through to the bottom of the Bible. Just enough for those grub screws. And there's our mangled C-clip. And you can see on the side of the core, there's a sidebar cut out, which is traditional for an Assa. They just stock do that for their other models that they have. So that is the Assa P600. Hopefully you guys like, comment, subscribe, and there's the key. Thank you guys for watching. We're about to end here in a second.